Hi. Welcome. Hello. I have new background. It's pink today. I'm very excited. And I got a new super I got a new microphone that's also pink. So I had to change the background to match the microphone. Okay, hopefully you can see and hear me okay. Hi. Okay, we'll get started in just a second. Not only did I get a pink microphone, I got this fun little pen because why not? Hello, James. Thank you for joining. We'll all get started in just a second. Hi, John. How are you? Thanks for being here. Hello, Miles. That's funny. You all go in there before I see you up here. Okay, we got a few people. Hi, Miles. How have you been doing? Hopefully the sound is okay. I should probably be a little bit closer. There we go. Just do that. I'll do that so you can hear me better. Before we get started, Mitt Romney just made an announcement. He just said that he will be retiring from office and not seeking reelection. And his reasoning for it was rather interesting. He said, at the end of another term, I would be in my mid 80s. Frankly, it's time for a new generation of leaders. They're the ones that need to make the decisions that will shape the world they will be living in. Totally agree. I totally agree. And I think more people should probably do the same. Why should you be running a country if you're not even going to be in that country in a few years? The decisions that you make aren't really going to be affecting you at the end of the day. It should be people that are going to be occupying the country in the future. And I don't know if I necessarily believe in term limits, but there should be some sort of limitation. I don't think anyone should be running for office in their 80s. Hello? All right, let's get started. Oops. I wanted to save that. Okay, has anyone been following this wild story? I'll just go ahead and give you the quick update on this. I'm not going to go too far into it. This guy at a prison in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Hi from New Zealand. So this guy, Danilo, who is an inmate in Chester County, in a prison in Chester County, uh, escaped the prison by this move. He literally crab crawled or spider crawled, whatever you want to call it, up a hallway onto the roof, went through barbed wire, and then escaped the prison. So the backstory is a few days before this escape, he was sentenced to a life in prison without parole for the fatal stabbing of his ex girlfriend. So that sentencing happened a few days before this happened. Also, in May, in the same prison, this is probably where he got the idea. Another inmate attempted to escape doing the same exact method. So, this guy did the same sort of crab crawl, spider crawl, whatever you want to call it, up the walls, and he got on the roof, but a tower guard actually saw him, so he didn't get very far. They caught him before he fully escaped. But the only thing they changed after this guy's attempted escape was putting barbed wire on the roof, and he clearly got through it. I guess the tower guard on his shift wasn't paying attention. Maybe he was distracted. But this guy, Danilo, a really dangerous man, was able to escape, and he was out for about 2 weeks. They were looking for him. There were a few sightings of him. He had shaved his head, he shaved off his beard, put on different clothes. One sighting of him was pretty alarming. A guy left his garage door open. Danilo entered the garage, stole a firearm and left. The man shot at him, but it's not believed that the bullets actually hit Danilo, but Danilo escaped. And at that point, this happened over the past weekend, he is now armed and incredibly dangerous with a $25,000 reward if anyone can help catch him. Hello from Delaware County, Pennsylvania. So anyway, they finally captured him at about 8:15 this morning. There were about 500 people deployed looking for this guy. The manhunt was real. Here's a little bit of a video of the capture, and it just shows you how many people were after him. But this guy was gone for 2 weeks. Almost 2 weeks he was out there. And that's them taking him in. Must have been a little scary in Chester. So there he is. That's done. Hallelujah. He's been captured. Also in the news, they are starting an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden and all his business dealings. So, an impeachment inquiry is different from actual impeachment. And I've even heard those that are in favor of the impeachment inquiry and even probably in favor of an overall impeachment. They'll even admit that they probably don't have enough votes to move forward with an actual impeachment. But what the inquiry will do, it will allow them discovery so they can get access to bank records and show people what's really going on. Here's Nancy Mace talking to Caitlin Collins on CNN, where Caitlin's pushing back. And yes, I do acknowledge that there's probably not going to be an actual impeachment, but anything that helps get the truth out, I'm in favor for. And if that's all this does, if it shows a few more people the truth, if it shows more evidence, then hey, I'm all for it. At least it's something, right? So here's Nancy Mace with
a toolbox
Collins.
specifically.
Obviously, Caitlin is pushing back.
Launching an impeachment inquiry. Do you support launching an impeachment inquiry into President Biden?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say at this point. I think there's a difference between an impeachment vote and an inquiry. The inquiry would give us another tool in the toolbox, specifically to look at Joe Biden's bank records. Everyone's screaming about the evidence. Where's the evidence? The bank records hold.
Yeah, so that's really what it's about. It's about investigating. It's about bringing things to light. And they keep it was so funny because later on in this interview, Caitlin keeps pushing back again, and she's like, I don't understand. If you don't have evidence, what's the point of an inquiry? And Nancy Mace was like, well, that's the whole point of an inquiry, to see if there's evidence or not. And if there's not evidence, that's what the inquiry will show. If there is evidence, that is also what the inquiry will show. So it was a pretty silly segment. That's what's happening with Joe Biden. They're supposed to have, the GOP is supposed to have a meeting tomorrow discussing the inquiry. So we'll stay tuned for that. I would be interested in seeing the bank records and seeing what exactly is going on. How do you live a life in politics where you only make a few $100,000 a year and have a net worth of millions and millions of dollars and homes all over the place? How is that possible? Maybe we'll find out. I don't know. So there's that. Not too much to say about it. I'm always for an impeachment. I think you use whatever tools you have necessary and at your disposal to bring sunlight to some of these issues. Because unfortunately, there are still a lot of people that have their head in the sand and that don't want to acknowledge that the Biden family did anything wrong. So there's that. Now, got through that pretty quickly. Now let's talk about the governor of New Mexico. This is a wild. I'm sure you've heard of this or seen some of the videos. So I'm going to show you the original press conference in which the governor of Ohio, so out of response to an unfortunate, horrible tragedy of an 11-year-old child being shot, the governor of New Mexico has decided to issue an emergency declaration suspending for 30 days the right to arrest anyone or the right to enforce, removing your right to walk around concealed carry. So open carry, concealed carry, if you're in certain jurisdictions, she is calling on a 30-day emergency declaration to suspend that right. Obviously, a lot of backlash has ensued. So let's look at the original press conference, and you're going to hear her reasoning for it, which the reasoning for it doesn't even make sense at all. So here's a piece of the original press conference where you have a reporter that's pushing back on her a little bit.
With one exception. It is valid.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carrying license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time.
So what's scary about this is what precedent does that set? If you can just declare an emergency over anything at any point in time and use that as justification to take constitutional rights away. See, that is a little bit scary.
I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are
So you see what she said. Well, under this declaration, that can grant me more powers, and my oath to the Constitution is not absolute. That's essentially what she's saying. And here's the scary part about that. What constitutes an emergency? Who declares it's an emergency? One person gets to decide whether something is an emergency or not.
restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms. In this emergency, this 11-year-old and all these parents who have lost all these children, they deserve my attention to have the debate about whether or not in an emergency.
Okay, it's one thing to have a debate and to give it attention. It's another thing to totally attempt to suspend constitutional rights.
We can create a safer environment. Because what about their constitutional rights? I took an oath to uphold those too. And if we ignore this growing problem without being bold, I've said to every other New Mexican, your rights are subrogated to theirs. And they are not, in my view.
Wait a minute, okay. You're talking about crimes. There are already laws against the crimes, so how are their rights?
I got it, but again, if I'm unsafe, who's standing up for that right? If this climate is so out of control, somebody should do something. I'm doing as much as I know to do.
Madam Governor,
Yep.
do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No. But here's
She admits it.
what I do think. It's a pretty resounding message.
All right, so you get the gist of it. She was pushed back on a little bit again, and the question was asked, well, why don't you just arrest the criminals? Why don't you just enforce the law better? And she goes on to say, and she pointed it out a little bit there, yeah, this obviously a criminal is still going to carry a gun if they want to. And then she also says, well, we can't, there's too many of them. We can't just arrest all of them. So again, this makes, even if you are someone that wants to do away with the Second Amendment, let's say you don't want anyone to own a gun, you are that radical. Even her justification for this is bonkers, and it goes in circles. It makes no sense. And if you are in charge, in my opinion, and you're sitting there saying there's too many criminals, we can't arrest all of them, you have no business being in charge. If that's your way of thinking, you have no business being in charge of anyone. But thankfully, people are pushing back. A local sheriff has said that he will not be enforcing this. Here we go.
I hold my standards high.
Let me start over.
Clear. I hold my standards high, and I do not or never will hedge on what is right. and I take my oath seriously. In reference to concealed carry and open carry, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office will not enforce this segment of the order. While I understand the urgency, the temporary ban challenges the foundations of our Constitution, but most importantly, it is unconstitutional. Clear.
So a lot of people are coming out and saying that. You even had, this is funny, David Hogg. You all know who David Hogg is. Probably one of the biggest gun control advocates that's out there. He even retweeted and said that this is not a good idea. He said, although I do agree with gun reform, this is not the way. So you're out here, you're so radical. You have myself and David Hogg on the same side. That is, you've gone too far. When I'm agreeing with David Hogg, that's when you know that you have pushed the envelope way too far. And I believe, what's her name? Governor New Mexico. Wow, okay, this is how bad it is too. And see, I think David Hogg is smart in the sense that he knows that, again, that it's unconstitutional. And if you are pro more gun control, this is probably the worst way you can go, because you're going to rally. This is the biggest fear of people that are pro 2A, that someone's going to come in and take all their guns. So you're just feeding into that fear and mobilizing that base. So even he knows that politically, this is a terrible move. Terrible. The story, and this is interesting too. Democratic New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres has refused to defend the governor's emergency gun ban, claiming it violates citizens' constitutional rights and will not hold up in court. Democrat New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham declared a public health emergency Friday to ban citizens from carrying firearms in Albuquerque, the state capital, and Bernalillo County. The public health emergency is set to remain in effect for 30 days. Torres, who has received over $100,000 from PAC affiliated with Democratic mega donor George Soros. Okay, so this is a Soros-backed AG who is not even backing the governor. In his previous race for county district attorney, announced his intention to not defend the emergency order in a Tuesday letter to Grisham. Though I recognized my statutory obligation as New Mexico's chief legal officer to defend state officials when they are sued in their official capacity, my duty to uphold and defend constitutional rights of every citizen takes precedence. Simply put, I do not believe that the emergency order will have any meaningful impact on public safety. But more importantly, I do not believe it passes constitutional musters. And that's the thing too. Again, even if you are the most pro gun control, hi Glenn, even if you're the most pro gun control, what she laid out, how she described it, this is going to do zero to help public safety. Zero. In my opinion, I don't know if this was a virtue signal move. I don't know if this was a move that she thought was going to get her political points amongst her base and amongst Democrats. I don't know if she thought this was going to give her attention, but it really feels like it's backfiring when even her own side, even David Hogg, even Soros-backed AG, isn't even defending her. And there were actually a few prominent Democrats that came out and condemned what she did or what she's attempting to do. The attorney general argued that branding gun violence as a public, this is interesting. And this is where I was trying to make my point that this is setting a dangerous precedent for anyone, any governor, or any mayor to do an emergency declaration over anything, saying that it's a health issue. Who decides that? So he says the attorney general argued that branding gun violence as a public health emergency does not justify barring law-abiding citizens from carrying a firearm for self-defense purposes. He also accused the governor of misusing the Public Emergency Response Act, which is intended to protect the public from imminent threat or exposure to an extremely dangerous condition or a highly infectious or toxic agent, including a threatening communicable disease. Moreover, even if the problem is properly categorized as a public health emergency, the data does not support the conclusion that gun violence in our community is attributable to otherwise law-abiding citizens exercising their constitutional right to carry firearms for protection outside of the home. The letter reads, on Tuesday morning, Grisham herself admitted during a CNN interview, we're going to watch that in just a second, that she does not expect criminals to comply with the emergency order. Torres cited a U.S. Supreme Court case, McDonald versus City of Chicago, District of Columbia versus Heller, and New York State Rifle and Pistol versus Buren, which established a citizen's right to publicly carry for personal protection. I urge you to reconsider this course of action and redouble your efforts to bring about lasting change through the democratic process. I can and will commit the resources of the Attorney General's office to such an endeavor that stand and ready to assist you in building a safer community without sacrificing the constitutional rights which we have sworn an oath to preserve and protect. Some liberals, including Parkland shooting survivor David Hogg and Democratic California Ted Lieu, you guys, Ted Lieu, have criticized her gun ban. Ted Lieu, you know you've gone too far when I'm standing in solidarity with. How dare you? How dare you make me stand in solidarity to Ted Lieu and David Hogg? That's an impeachable offense. Even in her press conference, she admitted in her press conference that criminals were not going to abide by this. She said it was to send a message. To who? Okay, this is her on CNN.
Ground here. We also have, Governor, the Constitution of New Mexico and the Constitution of the United States, and you're an attorney.
Did you see that? It's like, the Constitution, that thing. And play it again. That's that pesky little thing.
We also have, Governor, the Constitution of New Mexico and the Constitution of the United States, and you're an attorney. Do you think you're on solid constitutional ground here?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, look, I wouldn't do it if I didn't think I had the right. I have the right.
Where is the right? Where is the right?
In the state of New Mexico. Public health, it's a suspension. It's not a ban. And we'll see what all of these court actions do.
And at the end of the day, what she's doing, she's going to have so many lawsuits. What she's doing is just costing taxpayers even more dollars. I honestly thought she thought this was going to go differently, and she didn't think. Even CNN is pushing back. Ted Lieu is pushing back. David Hogg is pushing back. Her sheriff is pushing back. The AG is pushing back. There's also other police officers who came forward saying, we're not going to be enforcing this. Imagine also being an officer and being asked to waste your time going after law-abiding citizens. There was also a big demonstration outside of the Capitol right after she made this announcement with regular citizens coming out. It wasn't right-wingers. It was just regular citizens coming out with their concealed carries and with their open carries saying, we're not going to be complying. Yes, they do now spread disease, apparently. Spread disease. And again, I just go back to what precedent does this set if you can just call anything a public health emergency? What else did I have on the list? Oh, we have Lauren Boebert. This was a funny story. Is that what I have next? Oh yeah, we do have that next. Okay, Lauren Boebert, who I like Lauren Boebert. I do. I like her a lot. But she sort of got into headlines recently for being kicked out of a Broadway show. I used to live in Denver. This happened in Colorado. It happened in downtown Denver at the Denver Center for Performing Arts. And she was going to see Beetlejuice, the Broadway show Beetlejuice. It must have just been touring there with a guy. Maybe that was her date, her friend. I know she was going through a separation and she was kicked out. We have the video. I have all kinds of stuff. So she was kicked out because apparently she had disorderly behavior. So she's being accused of vaping, of being loud, of causing a disturbance, and taking photos within the venue, which you're actually not supposed to be doing. And we will go into a little bit more of the story. Politicians also spread diseases. Give me 1 second. Okay, Representative Lauren Boebert was tossed out of a musical over the weekend for unruly behavior throughout the show, according to a report. Boebert, 36, was attending Beetlejuice the musical at the Temple Hoyne Buell Theater in Denver on Sunday evening along with an unidentified male after fellow audience members complained the two were being loud. Theater employees accused the two of vaping, singing, and recording and causing a disturbance during the performance. During intermission, the two were confronted by ushers who warned them about their behavior. The outlet reported that security received another complaint about the patrons being loud at the time they were recording 5 minutes into the second act. They told, by the way, these theaters are very, very dark. Sounds like she was sipping on that fire water, but that had to have been it. I have a little bit of video. They told me they would not leave. I told them they need to leave the theater, and if they do not, they will be trespassing. The patrons said they would not leave. I told them I would be going to get Denver police to go and get them. And then they challenged the usher. So the usher said, "I'm going to go get police." They said, "Go get them." Boebert, the second-term congresswoman serving Colorado's 3rd district, and her guest were again approached by 2 security workers and escorted away from their seats during the show. As she was being escorted out of the theater, Boebert stopped several times, once to take a selfie and other times to turn around and seemingly yell at the security guards while wagging her finger. When they reached a vestibule of the theater, Boebert reportedly resisted exiting while asking the workers, "Do you know who I am? I'm on the board. I will be contacting the mayor." Definitely sounds like she was a bit tipsy. Police arrived at the theater and waited in the lobby until Boebert and her sidekick left. Let's see. The pair were later seen walking hand in hand after leaving the venue, with the mystery man spinning Boebert as they walked through an empty plaza. Although the incident didn't identify the two people who were removed from the theater, it's them. Boebert and her 2024 re-election campaign both confirmed that the congresswoman was kicked out of the theater without verifying the points of her alleged poor behavior. I can confirm the stunning installation rumors in her personal time. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, is indeed a supporter of the performing arts. Gasp. And to the dismay of a select few, enthusiastically enjoyed a weekend performance Beetlejuice, said one of her staffers in a statement. Sexton also confirmed to the paper that Boebert had used her phone to take a picture of the show, although the theater prohibits cell phone usage during performances. It's true, I did. Okay, so this is Lauren Boebert's tweet about it afterwards. She said, "It's true, I did thoroughly enjoy the amazing Beetlejuice at the Buell Theater, and I plead guilty to laughing and singing too loud. Everyone should go see it if you get the chance this week, and please let me know how it ends." Boebert, a mother of 4 boys and grandmother to one, she is a grandmother at 36 years old. Holy cow. Filed for divorce from her husband of 18 years in May, citing irreconcilable differences. Boebert is seeking a 3rd term in Congress and is expected to face Democratic challenger Adam Frisch. Okay, so that's apparently what happened, and I have the video, and then I'll give you my thoughts on this whole thing. But you can see in this, so this is the picture from some of the security camera footage. You can clearly see she's having an altercation. Well, she's also being accused of taking photos, filming, and vaping during the thing. And I'm very familiar with this theater. It's a really nice theater. And you'll see just how packed it is. So you have to be doing quite a bit to get noticed by that many people. So here's the overhead. So right about, you can see them standing up right under the 9 News and leaving. It's a really, really big theater. So there they are leaving. And the thing is, too, it gets so crowded, most people probably wouldn't have even recognized that it was her. So there they are leaving. She's taking a selfie. And there she is. I don't know why that keeps beeping. It sounds like a phone beeping. So you can tell she's kind of arguing a little bit back and forth. And there they are leaving. And then later, so this is a part of a really big complex. So that's kind of the little walkway they're in. Okay, so that's the end of that. And people had a lot of reactions about it. So this is, why did they give her a chance to tone down? Well, it sounds like they did. It sounds like they approached her 1 or 2 times before that, asking her to calm down, and they refused to do so. So that's why, like, she kept having complaints after they asked her to be quiet. And look, I'm very familiar with this. So I lived in Denver for about 5 years. That the Buell Theater that they were at, it's a beautiful, huge theater. and it's a part of the Denver Center for the Performing Arts Complex, which is a really nice place. And when you go to a show there, it's a big to do. You dress up, it's expensive. Hi, Mark. So I kind of believe that she was being a bit disruptive. And I kind of like, I'm not obviously mad at it, whatever, that's your life, but I do think it's a really bad look and is kind of embarrassing. And the thing, it sounded like maybe they were a little bit tipsy and maybe just didn't realize how loud they were being. I don't know, but this is and this is like a city place. This is Denver. Denver's the capital of Colorado. You're an elected congresswoman out in public. Like, you should have a bit more of decorum, or just understand that you are a public person. You are an elected public servant that represents a district in Colorado. When you're going to a place like this, I mean, you should be on your best behavior. I think it's rather embarrassing. And she did admit I was being a little bit loud. She didn't say this is totally false and it was unfair. But I want to read to you what this is. Jenna Ellis. This is one of Trump's attorneys. Jenna Ellis was actually booked in Fulton County too. So this is one of Trump's older and um lawyers, attorneys. That's what I was trying to say. So she says Lauren Boebert getting kicked out of the Buell Theater in Denver for being loud, disruptive, vaping, and video recording after being asked multiple times to stop is embarrassing and disrespectful behavior from a sitting congresswoman. She goes on to say it's pretty harsh. She goes on to say, good grief, Republicans, do better. She also said Congress shouldn't be a frat house any more than it should be a retirement community. You know what? Touche. Touche there. Jenna says Congress shouldn't be a frat house any more than it should be a retirement community. I second that motion. I mean, if you understand Denver, like, this is a nice place to go to, really nice place. And the theaters, by the way, I'm very familiar with the Performing Arts Center. I've studied acting there at the Denver Performing Arts Center. I volunteered there. I've obviously seen a lot of shows there. We used to hold the Denver Film Festival there. So I've worked in a lot of those venues. I've actually I wasn't necessarily an usher, but I did something very similar to ushering at one of those theaters during the Denver Film Festival. They're very dark. It's not somewhere where you like scream and yell. And also, if you're video recording in there, if your phone is on, if any sort of light is on, all of the attention goes to you. And they didn't confirm or deny the vaping, but I can't even imagine, if that is true, pulling out a vape in the middle of that place. It's just not that kind of place. And again, it is a city building. It is a part of the city of Denver. And she is an elected official being there and representing her district. I think it was, and again, I like Lauren Boebert, but I think this was really poor taste. I think her coming out and making it seem like she was kicked out just for laughing, I kind of don't believe that was true. Marjorie, wait, does Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, do they have a feud? Did she say anything? Ellis, a former Colorado resident. Oh, Jenna was a Colorado resident. Okay, that's okay. We're going to look that up right now then. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, looking that up right now. I just wanted to finish this. I mean, it's true. I like her, but this was, and she is one of those, she is a member of Congress, and I'm not saying I agree that she should be polarizing, but she is polarizing amongst people. So I think that too, like, don't give them ammo over something silly. Ellis, a former Colorado resident and frequent attendee at the Buell Theater. Okay, that's why Jenna and I have the same opinion. That's why, because we know the Buell Theater. That's why. Now it makes sense. A former Colorado resident and frequent attendee of the Buell Theater's shows defended her remarks to Newsweek on Wednesday, saying that she believed lawmakers should do a better job of representing their districts, regardless of what party they're in. I call upon my fellow conservatives to be principled and expect dignity and decorum from all members, rather than the typical political practice of condemning the other party for anything and for defending our party for anything. True words. It doesn't matter which party an individual member is affiliated. Congress represents the people in their district as a whole. Americans should expect more from our national representatives than classless public displays of disruptive and disrespectful behavior, whether on or off the floor of the House. It is unbecoming of the high office to which they serve. Ellis hasn't had a problem with Boebert in the past. She even called the conservative firebrand an excellent vote in Congress. In July, after the Cook Political Report moved Boebert's race to a toss-up from lean Republican, Boebert is facing a tough re-election battle next year. She is expected to run in a rematch against Democrat Adam Frisch, an unlikely candidate who made Colorado's 3rd district the closest U.S. House race in the 2022 midterms. So her team does deny that she was vaping. No. Anyway. Okay, what's happening with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert? Did Marjorie Taylor Greene say anything about Boebert? This is hard-hitting news here. Only the important stuff. Excuse me, Marjorie. The first thing that popped up. Oh my gosh. This is the first thing that popped up. NBC News, excuse me. Marjorie Taylor Greene calls Lauren Boebert a little bee on the House floor. Tensions between far-right reps Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert boiled over onto the House floor Wednesday as Boebert tried unsuccessfully to force a vote on her resolution to impeach President Joe Biden. During the vote on the resolution Wednesday afternoon, Greene and Boebert had a testy exchange on the floor, according to the Daily Beast. Boebert approached Greene, who was initially seated in the chamber, and confronted her about statements you made about me publicly. The news outlet reported, citing 2 sources who saw the exchange and a third familiar with the matter. So this happened in June. Wasn't that long ago. Greene called Boebert a little bee, the Daily Beast reported, adding that Greene accused Boebert of having copied articles of impeachment she filed against Biden. Boebert pushed back at Greene's claim, saying that she had not read the Georgia lawmakers' resolution. Nick Dyer, a spokesperson for Greene, confirmed to NBC that the outlet's characterization of the interaction was accurate. I had already introduced articles of impeachment on Joe Biden for the border, asked her co-sponsor mine. She didn't. She basically copied my articles and then introduced them and then changed them to a privileged resolution. Fight, fight, fight. Greene, who has been feuding with Boebert for months, has also vowed to introduce privileged resolutions to impeach Biden. Boebert had offered a privilege resolution to impeach Biden, which allowed her to force a House floor on the vote, but House Republicans ultimately decided to forego the vote and instead referred to a measure to the Homeland Security and Judiciary Committees to have House Rules Committee advance the last-minute meeting. Well, okay. Let's see. Has Marjorie Taylor Greene said in Marjorie... I don't think she said anything about it. I didn't know they were feuding. I wouldn't. What originally started the feud? Nah, she hasn't said anything about it. Why does she have two? Nah. And yet AOC and her friends somehow seem to be less appealing still. I haven't heard much from AOC recently. Not at all. She's been rather quiet. Maybe they're telling her to be quiet. Maybe they're like, don't talk. Just don't talk. All right, everyone. Well, I think that's everything I had for today. Thank you for watching. I couldn't not talk about the Lauren story just because I'm so familiar with that theater. It's a beautiful theater, and they had a really cool. We did. Actually, Denver has one of the best film festivals. It's not a lot of people know about it, but every November it goes on for 10 days. Very cool. But I used to volunteer at it, and I would help put on a bunch of events. It was really fun. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. I will see you later. Hopefully, you have a really, really good day. And bye. See ya. Have a good day.